filming in that area there, right where my finger is. Just keep zooming in there, so that should do. And a little bit to the left, and down. Perfect. Let's just stay there for a few seconds. Now this is a huge gamble, but what happened just a few seconds ago when I shouted excitedly was a malachite kingfisher plummeted into the water there, and I don't think it was for a fish. I think it was to have a bath, and usually what they'll do is they'll fly in repeatedly about 3 or 4 times into the same spot, almost exactly the same spot when they are bathing. But like I say, it could be that one plunge was enough this time. So let's rather get Tibbs onto the pied kingfisher, which is hovering again. The 2 of them have just landed on that same little stump, Tibbs. Slap bang in the center of your... There we go. So it's stopped. I am going to keep an eye on whether this malachite kingfisher doesn't come for another swim. If not, I'll try and reposition the vehicle to get you some views of it. It's a tiny but a really, really beautiful kingfisher. Bright oranges and purples and blues. Oh, there we go. Well done, Tibbs. That's better. Has it got one? Yes, it does. Can you believe our luck? Kill after kill. And it was the female that was successful there. Again, you can see her brassiere that she's wearing, and now the male has decided it's his time to also go and get some breakfast. What an incredible hunter, these kingfishers. Well, can you believe this high-intensity bird-watching session here at the Buffelshoek Waterhole? For those of you who are not ordinarily birders, you cannot help but enjoy the action that we are getting spoilt with here. So often people love watching animals hunt, and we are getting non-stop hunting action here from the storks, now the kingfishers. And that's one of their favorite perches up there. That's where they spend the majority of their time. You can hear the quang call of a go-away bird that's also arrived at the waterhole. They're coming down for a drink. Just to the right of where that female kingfisher was, Tibbs, with the kill on that stump. There's the go-away bird there. Coming for a muddy cappuccino. And I'm not sure how many birds you guys are on so far, so let's count through it. We've got the pied kingfishers, the woolly-necked storks, the grey go-away bird, 3-banded plover, blacksmith... Hold on, my abacus is broken again. But while I try and start to count and work out how many birds we have seen here this morning, we are going to play you a short slow motion video. This doesn't happen very often, only for special moments, and the moment that is going to be slowed down for you is the kingfisher plummeting into the water. So enjoy the video and we'll catch you on the other end. Awesome, I'm sure you guys enjoyed that, and straight back into regular speed live kingfisher hunting action. So I'm going to attempt to try and count again. There's so much going on here that I'm getting distracted, but the pied kingfisher the three-banded plover, the blacksmith lapwing, Egyptian goose, woolly-necked stork, saddle-billed stork, hammerkop, 7. So we've got 7 birds here already so far. I'm not sure if there's any that I've missed. The malachite kingfisher I do hope to show you shortly. Any bit of movement in the center of your screen. That is a malachite kingfisher. Obviously we're going to need to get you a better view, but let's just stay on that spot. So I'm going to reposition. There we go, right hand side of your screen, and if you just zoom in now, there we go, look at this. And this bird is tiny, probably only 1.5 inches long. The buffalo thorn tree that it's sitting in only has very small leaves, so that may give you some perspective. Look at that electric blue on its back. They are so incredible, these malachite kingfishers, and they could well in small cavities in the banks surrounding waterholes. Just going to try and creep forward a little bit more to give Tibbs a better view. Tibbs, you can stay zoomed in there, that's perfect. Oh, off it goes. Converting you into a bird watcher. If you enjoy them games like this, it's a good kind of foot in the door in terms of ornithology. A lot of the time, I must agree, it can be quite tedious and boring, but a morning like this is a good way to get involved with bird watching. And like I say, thanks Gail, happy to hear that you're enjoying it. See if we can get you a different view of what's going on here, and while we do that, we're going to send you across to James for an update.
So, from one malachite kingfisher to, well, a wildebeest. There is no possible link between the two, not even 5 degrees of separation could possibly link them. It does have an oxpecker on its back though. Well, the reason we're here is not necessarily for that lonely wildebeest bull, but indeed because we've come down to the waterhole here in front of Djuma camp. And in front of in the waterhole, there's my head, I'm just hiding from the camera, thank you Andre for that. There is a hippopotamus in this very small little waterhole, and the zebra keep trying to come down and drink, and every time he moves towards them they run away in a bit of a panic. And they're obviously very thirsty, and as you can see, lots and lots of competition for water in this area for the animals that really need it. And this hippopotamus, as the water becomes more and more scarce throughout the place, will become that much more defensive about being in the water. I don't think he'd try and cause trouble if there was something like an elephant here, and I think Jean-Ray, you mentioned that there were elephants down trying to drink here yesterday with him, but the zebra will be wary of a hippo. And you can see them trying now, they're thinking about coming down again. But every time he moved, there were 2 or 3 of them drinking, every time he kind of shifted towards them, they'd leap off. I think they're also probably a bit uneasy because it's breezy, and that generally makes them a little uneasy. Here we go, this is quite interesting. So while we're watching to see if the zebra is brave enough, here he goes. There we go. Oh, no, a bit nervous. Marianne, you've seen this hippo now on this ridiculously small piece of water, and you want to know how far a hippo will be able to walk should the need arise. Should they come to a point where their normal waterhole dries out. Marianne, they can travel apparently up to 50 kilometers, which of course is a long way. That is roughly 30 miles, and they'll do that at night. So that's a pretty long way. And they'll move distances in the day as well, but they definitely have the ability to move substantial distances. Heat and sun are the major things that will affect their ability to move. So we're going to wait here just for a little while and see what those zebra do. Here comes another one, trying to see if he can have a drink. Little bit of sun coming out now, breaking through the clouds, and as soon as the sun does hit us, it's very warm indeed. A bit of a standoff, and these standoffs often in the wild don't tend to be particularly exciting until the actual action begins. There's a lot of patience and thinking and consideration before any moves are made.
And like I say, they could only be 24 hours old. And I don't like to speculate ages of animals unless I'm confident about them. And like I say, because we do spend so much time here and we haven't seen these goslings yet, it could mean that they are that young. As soon as they hatched, they would have been brought straight to the water's edge, where they'll do the pregeometry of their feeding. And you can see that amongst these youngsters, there's already one that's kind of braver than the rest, testing out its little flippers, its webbed feet. Oh, Tebs was on the action there and got the kingfisher, which has caught another fish. Well done, Tebs. This could be interesting. It looks like a fairly large fish for the kingfisher, so it may be worth keeping an eye on this kingfisher, because we could get some entertainment as it tries to swallow this large prey. Doesn't look too big, but I do think that it's going to at least have to dispatch of it properly, make sure it's dead before it swallows it. And you can see it's doing that now. It's trying to batter it against that little stump. Not an easy business. I mean, remember that fish are slippery, and it's clamped onto it with just its beak. So it's certainly showing us the control and skill it has in order to be able to control its beak and clamp down on that fish while it clobbers it against that stump without losing it, without it slipping out of its grasp. Hello, Vernie in Zimbabwe. And a very interesting fact that you've just brought to the table here. Vernie's heard that pied kingfishers are the largest birds that can hover. But I'm not too sure if that's true, Vernie. Like you say, there's also the giant kingfisher, which we do see occasionally in this area. They do occur here, but find they're more typically along the major rivers in the Sabi Sands. And they certainly can hover, as well as a lot of birds of prey. A lot of harriers and hawks, the black-shouldered kites, are very good at hovering. Oh, this woolly-necked stork's coming with purpose. really knows what he wants for breakfast, or she. Difficult to distinguish between the two. The old kingfisher is still having a tough time trying to dispatch of this kill. So Vernie, interesting that you brought this up. I don't think it's entirely true though. I've known of lots of other birds that are great at hovering, and like you say, even the giant kingfisher within this same bird's family can hover very well. So, interesting fact, but I don't know how plausible it is. Here's the female saddle-billed stork. Now that we're a bit closer, you'll see that she's got a yellow eye. The male has got a black eye, and also a bright yellow wattle below its beak. Gives you a good indication of the size difference we're dealing with here with these two birds. Both incredibly good hunters. One using the technique of wallowing through the water, or wading through the water in search of their prey. Oh, what's going on there? What are you chasing after, saddle-billed stork? Not too sure what it was after there. Certainly running after something. Not an easy job for Tebs on camera, because obviously when there's so many things going on, it's difficult to know where to film. But I think he's doing a great job in picking the right moments of action to swivel you across to. Looks like the kingfisher is about to try to swallow that fish, Tebs. Let's see if it will in fact succeed. Oh, just about down, I think. And you can see its beak's kind of stuck open. Oh, it just regurgitated it. Couldn't get it down that time. Obviously not happy with the fact that the fish could still be alive, I'm guessing, and that's why it's going in for a few more wallops to try and complete the coup de grace here. Ellen has just asked whether it's possible that the kingfisher would... Oh, there's another swallow. Will it get it down? Sorry, Ellen. If these pied kingfishers would attack the goslings at all. And I find it highly, highly unlikely. Oh, it managed to swallow it. That looks good. It may need to shake its head from side to side in order to get it all the way down. There we go. Job well done, Mrs. Pied Kingfisher. And I'm sure she's probably going to sit there for a while now, as her stomach begins to deal with that massive catch that she's just swallowed. To give you an idea of size, the pied kingfisher is not too much bigger than those little goslings, so it would be picking on a prey item that's literally too big to chew on. And the pied kingfisher, the giant kingfisher and the malachite kingfisher are three of the kingfishers that will strictly only eat fish or aquatic animals like frogs, whereas the other kingfishers' names are misleading. The woodlands kingfisher, the striped kingfisher, the brown-headed kingfisher, just to name a few, the African pygmy kingfisher, are all woodland kingfishers that only feed on insects and also possibly excuse me, small rodents and reptiles. So those kingfishers, can you believe it? Has she caught another one, or has she just gone for a little refreshing dip? I think she's just gone for a refreshing dip. As I was saying, a lot of the kingfishers will feed strictly on animals that live out of the water, whereas the minority of kingfishers are actually fishermen. So the name is a little bit misleading as a species. Now Remay, you have brought up a very good point in terms of who could feed on the goslings. There are some terrapins that live in this waterhole. They're usually don't show themselves very clearly, but using my binoculars to try and find you one. No, not clearly evident, but basically it's a freshwater turtle. And Ramey, you spot on. Terrapin would happily predate and feed on a little gosling. So that will be a concern for the Egyptian geese parents. A lot of them are possibly a little bit too small to be taken.
Signal issues and wind. It's not Scott, it's windy, of course. A recalcitrant old girl that she is. We've come into the area where Karula's tracks were spotted this morning. What do you see, Jandre? Jandre thought he smelt something there. He thought he may have smelt some cat dung. So we've come into the area, like I was saying, where Karula was seen yesterday evening, and we will try and find her. She is, to be honest, a phantom leopard, and when she doesn't want to be seen, she simply isn't seen. Yesterday evening, I was out tracking with Jandre, and we probably walked within, I'd say within 5 or 10 meters of her, and we didn't see her. Now, while that may well have to do with my lack of bush skill, I think it's got a lot more to do with the fact that Karula is extremely good at hiding herself when she doesn't wish to be viewed. Anyway, Jamie is around here as well. She's also looking for Karula. We had fresh tracks this morning coming into this area, so maybe we will be lucky. What worries me though is that she is now again further to the east of her territorial boundary with Shadow. Well, she's right on that boundary. We haven't seen Shadow for a while, and I wonder if she has perhaps remains in estrus because she hasn't conceived with Tingana, and maybe she is seeking him out yet again. For those of you who haven't been watching, Karula, an 11-year-old female leopard, certainly has been mating a lot of late with Tingana, 3 times in the last sort of 6 weeks, or maybe a month. And that's a huge number of times to have been mated by one male and not conceived. So I don't know why, maybe why she's perhaps still this far east in her territory. I think it would be a much better bet if she sought out Mbula and tried to produce another repeat performance of Quarantine and Kunuma, those 2 magnificent little male leopards who are now making their way as independents, north and south of us as far as we understand. Just to keep you posted on the dogs did manage to kill on Torchwood. They killed, I think, a duiker. That would not have gone very far at all amongst all of them, but they did manage to have themselves a meal today. Then the Nkahua Pride is sitting on Buffalo's Hook on a buffalo kill, so that's very good. I don't know if Junior is with them. It sounds like he probably is, especially if they're killing buffalo. And then the Styx Pride, and I don't know how many of the Styx Pride again are on Chitwa. They also are eating a buffalo. The whereabouts of the marauding Birmingham boys, I couldn't tell you. And likewise, the Matimbas seem to be doing quite a lot of settling down just to the south of us at Londolozi, and we'll keep you posted on their movements as well. At the moment, Djuma is a lion-free zone, however. And then we do know, as you all know, we've lost, or the Solala Pride has lost one of their males, and that was shortly after a meeting with the Birmingham boys. And Vincent, Texas, you want to know what I think has happened to him. I think that the general consensus will be that he's been killed by them. Very sad. Unfortunately, that's just how it seems to go out here. Especially to see, I mean, those 3 young fellows were really enjoyable to watch. But I suspect that those Birmingham boys just simply wouldn't have tolerated them, and maybe they just didn't manage to get away in time. So if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would say, yeah, probably been killed, Vince, I'm afraid. think that would be the general consensus from certainly the presenters here. But we might be wrong, might just be in hiding. It was quite a windy night, and I'm just watching the road carefully. Interesting question here that interesting question that dovetails with what I was looking at. I was looking at what looked like to be a young hyena track on the road. And virtual tourists, you want to know if we get aardwolf here. Now, for those of you who don't know, an aardwolf is a part of the hyena family, a very small hyena, like one of those sort of sub-adults we sometimes see. And virtual tourists, you want to know if we get them in the Sabi Sands. I don't think so. There may have been one or two records. I've certainly never seen one here. They're more a desert species, and I think in the presence of spotted hyenas, they probably don't occur a huge amount. And so, no, not really aardwolf here. All right, Scott's found another magnificent bird. Let's head across to him, and I'll be following on here.
So we've repositioned in search of better signal, which I'm fairly certain we have now, at least for the time being. Isn't it bizarre how when we didn't even move, we lost signal? It gives you an idea of what our tech wizards are up against here. This is the male kingfisher that we're looking at. You sadly can't see his breast, otherwise I'd be able to point out that bow tie and cummerbund that distinguishes him from the female. I've got some good news. I think another bird has just landed at the water's edge, kind of at 9 o'clock Tebs, just below us here. And it's a bright little yellow bird. If you just zoom into the water's edge right there, close to us here, just zoom right in, and then left a bit. I'll talk you through it. Left a bit more, keep zooming in, left a bit more. There we go. It's a tiny little bird, but it is in your shot. If you go a little bit more to the left, there's one that's more out in the open Tebs. Oh, they've both just flown off. But those were yellow-fronted canaries. So, another bird to add to the Buffelshoek list for this morning, the yellow-fronted canary. And James has found some mammals that he would like to show you. Enjoy.
From the beautiful, subtle to the perhaps not so beautiful and definitely unsubtle warthogs. Look at these lovely things. That is a young boar in front. I think that's probably a sibling from a litter before, and bringing up the rear is the sow in this interesting little sounder. I think she's probably the mother of both of them, if I was to guess. While the boar is getting there, he's a sub-adult. He's not quite at full size. There's the sow. It's quite nice to see them like this, you know. They so often don't sort of allow us to watch them for very long. These guys are walking very comfortably just around the side of us. There we go. You can maybe even hear them going tick, 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 tick through the bush. Lovely. They'll be off there. Stopped right here to eat a little bit. They won't be very comfortable with us. We'll try and go back a little bit. I suspect as soon as I start the engine, though, they're going to run away. We'll have a go. Yeah, look at that. They didn't run away. They're going into some thick bush now. So I think we'll leave them be. Marvellous to have a gentle warthog sighting like that. They do normally run off, like I say. We'll carry on our quest for Karula. There we go. Marvellous. On we go. So we're on the far western boundary now, or just about. The boundary's just over there, of Djuma, and Arathusa is to the west of us. And I'm sure they'll keep us posted as to whether perhaps dear Karula has headed across there in search of Tingana again. And I will keep looking at the ground. Now, we've spoken quite a lot recently about Tingana and his perhaps lack of fertility. And Siberia, Djuma, you want to know if the Anderson male can sense his lack of fertility and might therefore come and incur into his territory. Siberia, I've got absolutely no doubt in my mind that he will be none the wiser. So I don't think that you'll find some very interesting tracks here. I think that they're young hyenas. I don't think that, in fact I know that the Anderson male will have no idea whether Tingana is fertile or not, and that will play no role, even if he did know, on whether he comes into the territory or not. That will purely be defined by size and age. Sorry, I'm just looking here. There are other wild dog tracks here, you know. They might be from yesterday though. They're not fresh, but there are definitely some wild dog tracks on this road. I wonder if the Investec pack isn't around here somewhere. That would be exciting. So Siberia, whether or not Tingana is able to hold his territory will have a lot, almost entirely to do with his age, his condition. Even if he was completely infertile and had never sired a cub in his life, it would make no difference to whether he held on to his territory or not. And as I said to you when we were last with you, we just had confirmation that the wild dogs have killed a duiker on Torchwood and finished it already. And I don't think it would have been much of a meal to them at all. I think it would have been a very meager taking for breakfast for all those dogs. A duiker is only about 17 kilograms. And if you're a wild dog eating it, there'll be one or two bits and pieces that you can't eat, so probably about, say, 12 kilos of meat mixed amongst 20 dogs is really not very big at all. So no leopard tracks at this stage, but that's okay. We don't want to spoil ourselves too much. To have spent a bit more time with Karula. I mean, until the last few weeks I'd only seen her once in 6 months, which I thought was very unfair. Some kudus. Very close by kudus. And they're just happily feeding there. This youngster, it just takes one to panic them. I had a question a little while back about whether the antelope here have got white on the bottom of their tails, like say some of the deer in the United States do. That helps them to, keep in contact, visual contact when they're running through the bush. And you've just seen there that those kudu absolutely do have those white tails, and as soon as they run, they flick them up. And that helps them to follow each other. Lovely Karula. We'll just sneak a little bit forward. They are the most magnificent animals. Now they're eating something different. They were eating a bit of variable bush willow. Now they're eating white berry bush, but there are no berries on that white berry bush just yet. Now that squawking noise you can hear is some magpie shrikes who are alarm calling. Oh, there's what the way they were alarm calling at. There's a raptor flying there. A bird of prey. From this distance I'm afraid I won't be able to tell what it is. It looked like one of the hawks. Perhaps a dark chanting goshawk, maybe. And they would have made a big noise and then got a fright. But it's interesting, as soon as they started to alarm call, those kudu looked up immediately to see what was going on, in case they'd seen something more of a threat to the kudu. A goshawk is obviously unlikely to run off with a kudu in his talons. No berries, like I say, on the bush just yet. But the leaves are obviously very nutritious for some animals, and those kudu are just such animals. I'm trying to look at the one on the termite mound there, Jean, and see what he's eating. He's eating little pieces of knobthorn. We were discussing tongue colour just now, or a bit earlier, and how a lot of the herbivores out here tend to have very black tongues, and the kudu are no exception. And I think it's got something to do with the nasty thorns that they have to eat, or certainly that they have to negotiate in order to get sufficient leaves. Anyway, beautiful morning. It's so nice to have a break in that nuclear heat that we've had. I continue to be astonished at the Meteorological Society's inability to vaguely predict the weather here. They're very relaxed, these chaps. Beautiful. So that's a young kudu. Probably, how old? Let's say probably about 6 to 7 months old, I would say. And you can just see that kudu are not necessarily as seasonal breeders as the impala, maybe a little bit older than that, maybe 10 months. So they would have been born sort of as the dry season began. Constantly listening all the time. Very skittish are the kudu. Anyway, I can't hear any further alarm calls here, so I think we'll push on up this road and see if we cannot pick up a few further tracks of Kurula. The peaceful one. I'm always amazed, like I think I've said many times before, at the sense of how in the dawn there's this tremendous sense of expectancy, and you find the dogs and everything's frenetic activity, and people are driving all over the place, the radio's going wild, the animals are running away, and then you get to this stage of the day, which of course is still very early, but it's obviously been light now for what, almost 2.5 hours, and everything is calmed down. There's just a real change in the energy around the place. And we're looking at those kudu, which are very relaxed. Well, for kudu, I don't know that they ever truly totally relaxed. The wild dogs will go and have a snooze now in the shade. Jamie's driving very slowly in front of us. Everything is at a general peace at the moment. Hello, Jamie. How are you? Good, fine, full of joy.
Good morning, everybody.
Have you found the leopard yet?
No, I found a leopard tortoise though.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
sweet.
Well done.
I think she's probably watched me walk past her about.
Right. Is this your shoe?
No,
No.
it's not my shoe.
Okay, I found a shoe, everybody, in here this morning, and it looked about Jamie sized. I might use it myself, actually. All right, on we go.
I've been taking the boat shoe.
Okay.
Alright, I'll go that way, I'll go walk again.
Okay.
Bye.
We'll quickly go across to Scott. He's got a baby elephant. Bye-bye.
Oh, this is incredibly cute. There's a tiny little baby elephant with its mother, and it got a bit of a fright when we arrived onto the scene and ran into a fallen down silver cluster leaf tree, and it got entirely tangled in it, which was incredibly funny. And let's see if it doesn't provide us with a bit more humor. Just need to reposition quickly. Because it is a very small calf, we are going to be very delicate and sensitive with how close we get, and we'll slowly just nudge our way or edge our way into the sighting. The mother hasn't even given us a glimpse yet, so I don't think we have to worry about her, but always better to err on the side of caution with elephant cows, especially when they've got young calves like this. They're moving away from us, so what I'm going to try my best to do is get ahead of them. And we are actually familiar with this herd, and a lot of you who follow the show closely will know why. If we just take a closer look at this individual here quickly, some of you have named her Fang, and her tusk grows the wrong way. So she helps us to distinguish this herd from others, and we have noticed the tiny little calf within this herd on previous occasions. I'm just going to reposition again. I want to try and get ahead of them, and that will allow them to feed up to us. But maybe what we'll do is actually just wait right here, because we've got a very clear view of the big mother and the little calf. So what we'll do is we'll just keep waiting here and see if we don't get any better views. Well, this is a very calm and peaceful sighting, especially in comparison to the elephant sightings we had yesterday. Whilst on the live safari, we had the great entertainment of the wild dog giving a few different elephants a run around and a bit of a hard time. The elephants got very worked up with the wild dogs and chased them off. But Marco in New Jersey didn't only cash in on the action on the live drives, but also on the Djuma waterhole camera. And 6 adults returned or made their way to the Djuma waterhole in order to try and have a drink. And the elephants were chasing the dogs backwards and forwards, preventing them from doing so. And Marco would just like to know a little bit more about that behavior that he witnessed. I didn't get to see that behavior, Marco, but I did hear about it and could imagine exactly what went down. Basically, even though elephants have got a very unlikely chance of being predated on by any of the African carnivores, even lion, who are at the top of the food chain, they don't really like them. So, because lions will kind of tease, as well as wild dogs will tease elephants and kind of harass them, running around very quickly, sneaking up on them, giving them a fright, elephants dislike them and chase them. I guess elephants are also very clever animals and know that lions and wild dogs kill other animals. They'll stumble upon kills, they'll smell the death, they'll smell the blood and even see the death. And they're not huge fans of killing elephants. They are vegetarians, as you can clearly see, and therefore basically just have a dislike for any predators and will go out of their way, surprisingly enough, to chase them. I've been in sightings where elephant can smell predators before they can even see them, and by using their sense of smell they'll get even closer to the predators until they do lock eyes on them, and then they'll chase them off. So there's just a bit of kind of natural competition out here in Africa, and kind of rivalry, you could say, between the herbivores and the carnivores. I'm just going to reposition again and try and get us some slightly better views. One thing that will also happen, especially in very dry times of year, the baby's just about to cross in front of us. Who's that? During a drought, isn't this so cute? It wants to have a drink. Look at that, it has to climb up its mother's leg to get to the nipple. Can you believe it? It's that short. Just going to creep forward ever so slightly. See if we can get a better angle. There we go. That should work well. As we wait for this calf to attempt to take another drink, I can continue mentioning what I was saying just before, and that is that elephants will also be bullies at waterholes, especially in times of drought when they will be the biggest and the strongest at a very small point where all the animals will have to queue to drink. And Laura mentioned that she actually got to see elephants spraying the queuing impala with water, almost teasing them, and not unlike elephant behavior. And glad you got to see that, Laura. It's a great way to be out in Africa whilst we aren't on drive, so it's definitely worth tuning into the live waterhole camera at either Djuma or Arathusa, and there are many others that you can also tune into, so that is worth investigating if you haven't already done that. That robotic bird call that you can hear was from those birds that just flew off from there. They were fork-tailed drongos. They've just disappeared, but it's quite nice to point out the animals responsible for the noises you're hearing. There's also a few Cape turtle doves calling around us, but I can't see them, so I can't show them to you. They're one of the most vocal of all the birds in this area and are almost always calling. Quite a large herd, and the mother there got quite worked up. I'm not too sure why or what caused her to. She moved off to the side, leaving her youngster alone. There's Fang in the foreground. Doesn't she just have the most bizarre tusk structure, one forward, one back? She does have to kind of walk a little bit strangely like a cowgirl because of that. You can see how it tucks back into her front elbow. So she does have to kind of walk a little bit differently, but she's in great health and she's got used to using it as a feeding tool. And if I can just ask Tibbs to zoom in on the tip of that tusk. It's tricky as she moves around, but keep on the tip of that, the bottom tip of that other tusk, and you'll see a very distinctive groove. Now you can see it. And that's from pulling branches over that tusk and breaking them, using it as kind of a lever for snapping twigs. So that indicates to me that she's kind of right-handed or right-tusked, more dominant at least than a left tusk, which doesn't have a deep groove in it. And you can see these grooves not necessarily as prominent as this one, but also on other elephants. I'd very would like to know kind of my thoughts as to why and what would cause this. It's not normal, but every now and then it does happen. Vernie, I guess if you do get a massive pride of lions, because they have many mouths to feed, they will adapt to those conditions. And let's remember, these prides that were hunting those elephants in the Savuti area were 30 adults plus, if I'm not mistaken. So an incredible amount of power comes with 30 lion, and that power allows them to hunt abnormally large prey. That, coupled with the fact that there are huge elephant numbers in Botswana, especially in that Savuti area, as well as the fact that I think it was a very dry season, and elephants were having to come to very select water points where the lions could almost wait in ambush for them and pick off the weakening elephants. So strange things do happen in nature, and it's important for all of us to remember that. Everything you hear from any guide or any naturalist, they will be talking about the general rule. There are always exceptions to the general rule. And you'll probably find that on a very strange scenario, one dark night in Africa, even a leopard, maybe even a female leopard, has caught a baby elephant and sniped it from its parents without its parents even knowing what happened. These things all could happen. I hear the fork-tailed drongos, the birds that were making the robotic sound earlier, and it looks like it's caught an insect. It has. Hard to tell what it is, some kind of a flying insect. You can see the wings sticking out on the side there. And fork-tailed drongos are specialists in moving alongside large herbivores like these elephants, waiting for them to chase up some little insects, and then what the fork-tailed drongo will often fly in and catch that fleeing insect on the wing. It's going to reposition again, this little calf. I'm desperate to try and get you some good views of it, but they keep moving out of view. But thanks, Vernie, thanks for pointing that out. It's important. We should get some great views now as they move along. Oh, come and say good morning to us, please. Please come. Please come. Keep coming. Come on. Come on. Come and say hello. Oh, no. It thought twice about that bad idea. Back to the safety of being not at Mommy's side, but temporarily underneath Mommy. No one is going to mess with the baby elephant when it's standing right underneath its mother. That was very, very cute, and glad we finally got a great view of that calf. Like I said, when we arrived onto the scene, when we first stumbled upon these elephants, the calf had obviously strayed a little bit further than normal away from its mother, and it came rushing towards Mom, but there was a small fallen down silver cluster leaf tree that it got completely tangled in, and it was in a bit of a state of panic. So now Mum's just turned around and hasn't shaken her head, hasn't done anything serious, but she's just changed her body facing towards us, which was an indication to me that it was time to stop the vehicle. Had she had carried on feeding without doing anything, I probably would have been able to creep forward a few meters, but I just listened to that very subtle body language from her to prevent her getting worked up, because we really would not want to do that. She is a massive, massive animal, and if we got on the wrong side of her, it could end in a very nasty scenario. So it's always best to watch animals very closely, and I mean, it's no different to human body language. If you were getting too close to a human who was busy eating its meal and all of a sudden they stopped and kind of faced their body towards you a little bit more, you would know that they are not entirely happy with your approach, so stop or reverse or go elsewhere. Great question through from Mo in Chicago, and she's wondering, do elephants' tusks ever break? And she mentioned while digging. Yes, certainly. They will use their tusks to dig into sandy banks where they'll feed on the soil to get salty minerals. So that'll be an example of when they use their tusks to dig. But they also use their tusks to pry bark off trees, which puts a lot of pressure on them, as well as snapping branches over their tusks to feed on. So any one of those three acts could lead to a tusk breaking. Also, fighting between bulls will be a likely cause of a tusk to break. And they do break. You do see elephants with missing tusks. Some are born genetically without any tusks, but a lot of them do simply snap off. Especially with the monstrous tuskers. There's not many of them roaming around Africa. Sadly, the ivory trade many years ago meant that a lot of the good genes for huge tuskers were shot out. But you still do get massive elephants whose tusks literally touch the ground. And will be an average human being's leg at the base.
Sorry about that, everybody, but Scott is struggling a little bit with Wendy there at the dam. What a marvellous sighting it sounds like you're having. I'm rather jealous. While we drive Bumble around, hoping for the phantom leopard of Karula, you've been watching some magnificent suckling action with a tiny little baby elephant. Possibly one of the most beautiful things you can ever see in the bush. Next to wild dogs, of course, and now you've had both of those today, which is great stuff. We're coming around quarantine clearings now, and Jamie is in the block around where the tracks went. Now, of course, because she's a leopard, she doesn't leave very obvious markings, so we're just kind of roaming around the outside and seeing if her tracks don't cross out of the block, or if she's perhaps crossed out during the night and has strung up, say, a steenbok in one of the trees. That would be very exciting to see. We're also in the area where Jean-Ray saw the mating giraffe yesterday, and we were kind of hoping that that might still be on the go. Simply because it is the most fascinating thing to do, to see. Normally what happens is the males chase the females, and she shows absolutely no interest until she's completely ready to mate. And then she'll stand still very briefly. Here's a tiny giraffe. Chandra, I don't think this is the giraffe that resulted from last night's mating, but still it is a small giraffe nevertheless. Here we go. Now this is that one we've been watching here for the last 4 weeks or so. Probably now almost 3 months old. Very sweet. Now, to me, it's always so interesting how stocky they are. Their legs are stocky. They've got very powerful muscles in their shoulders already, and the neck is proportionately shorter than it would be on the adult. And that's for two reasons. One is that, of course, they need to suckle, so they don't want to have an encumbrance of a huge neck. And the second is, of course, that it makes them inherently unstable to have a great big long neck. And so a slightly shorter neck and powerful legs on a young calf is very helpful if they're trying to get away from predators at this young age. Isn't that sweet? As soon as we can restore signal with Scott and his baby elephant, we'll take you back there. But at the moment, what a wonderful thing to see, this little baby. And I don't think he will be on his own. I think there will definitely be a cow or two around here. I'm just keeping an eye. And as I said earlier, they sometimes look like they're not paying great attention to each other. But what you will find is that I think that they communicate with with various different sort of techniques, including infrasound, and I'm sure that this one is communicating with its mother and the other members of its little herd, possibly just visually. It's not unheard of for giraffe mothers to go off and leave their babies for hours at a time as they go and feed, but I do think that they stay connected. Now look at that. So you might be able to see just hanging below that giraffe's belly the last vestiges of the umbilical cord. And despite that, this giraffe is already eating leaves. So already starting to sample the vegetarian wares that are on offer here at quarantine clearings, but will still be suckling, I'm sure, at the same time. He's a very sweet little fellow, and I mean, on his screen he probably looks quite big to you, but he's probably, I would say, wow, what would you say, Jean-Andre, about 7 feet tall? A little bit taller than that, 8 feet, maybe 8 foot tall. So not very tall for a giraffe, and you can see the muscles there in the chest. Look at the muscles that he's got. That's a fairly newborn animal. Definitely packed on an enormous amount of muscle on the legs, which of course are very necessary when you are running away from lions and hyenas. I think also quite interesting, if you look at his knees, they look like they're slightly grazed, and I suspect that's because these youngsters do lie down a bit more than the adults, and the skin has probably been grazed off the front of his legs. So, Derek, you'd like to know, is this a male or a female? Derek, it is a male, and the only way you can tell that is to look between its legs at this stage, and unfortunately it's turned away from us, but he's definitely got a very small scrotum and the beginnings of what is called the sheath, which will eventually house the penis. So definitely a male giraffe, this one. But you can't tell at this stage other than by looking between their legs. Now, we were discussing earlier the size of the heart and why it is that they have such a big heart, and Alina in California, you want to know how big it is. I've actually forgotten, but the figure of 7 kilograms pops into my mind. So I think that it's substantial, and an adult giraffe, I'd say probably about 7 kilos, which is about 3 pounds, no, double that, say 16 pounds worth of heart. I think very large in the adults. Alina, I think that's probably the mass. I may be quite wrong though. That particular figure escapes my mind. So, yeah, I think got that recollection in my mind, but it might be wrong. We'll check up for you. Right, let's drive on slightly. See what else we can find around here. See where the rest of the herd is. Oh, there they are. There's the mother there. There's a huge pile of sticks here, so I can't drive off the road. I'll just turn around through here off the road. Go and look at the rest. I think it's just the mum. This is exactly genre where we had the others last night, isn't it? try to sneak in a Land Rover, of course, is not easy. We'll just ease our way through here. The baby and then the mum. Maybe we won't, we'll go this way. Patience game, this wildlife thing. I'm going to stop here because I don't want to try and push this mother too much, but she's hiding behind an enormous sickle bush tree. They're now both hiding behind basically the only bush that there is between us and them. But there you can see the baby, and you can see mum's shapes sticking out from behind that sickle bush tree. So sweet. And I don't know if you can hear that. It's a white-browed scrub robin, and that tends to be their alarm call or their evening call. They often do that in the evenings, just before it gets dark. I can't see the bird, but it's quite close by. Maybe alarm calling at a mongoose or a snake or even us. And of course many people come out here to Africa and they're told that they should look for the big five. And the big five, of course, the buffalo, elephant, lion, leopard and rhino. And when people used to say to me, we want to see the big five, I'd say, but don't you want to see giraffe and wild dog and cheetah? And they'd say, oh, are they not part of the big five? And Gretchen, you say that you haven't seen giraffe for a long time and you've needed a nice fix of them. I think giraffe, like you, are one of the most magnificent animals you could possibly watch out here. I mean, compared, all of the animals here are magnificent, no doubt, but this, I mean, in terms of a majestic creature, surely a giraffe must rank right up there with the best of them. So Gretchen, I agree with you completely. Lovely to get a nice giraffe fix. And they're nomadic, you know. And we had some comments a little bit earlier from Jana, who's coming to Africa. And Jana, you've told us that you're coming to Arathusa, which is of course just to the west of us. That's marvellous. I think you'll see some great stuff. You'll meet some lovely people too. And you don't know where else you're going to stay while you're out here. That's most adventurous of you, Jana. I'm sure you will find any number of great places to stay while you're out here in what was recently voted, of course, the world's most beautiful country. Possibly by South Africans, but I still agree with that thoroughly. The other thing, I mean, so today you have had the elephants, of course they're part of the big five, but even if you hadn't had the elephants and we hadn't been viewing them with Scott there, to have had a beautiful giraffe sighting like this, those incredible birds that Scott showed you at the dam, and the wild dogs to start off with, even in the absence of any big five animal, this would have been a spectacular drive. So I do hope fervently one day that the term big five disappears from the human lexicon entirely, because it does really undersell all the other magnificent animals that we have out here. Dear, and there's another question about hearts here. Anna-Marie, you want to know how much larger an elephant's heart is from a giraffe's. Anna-Marie, I'm going to have to go and do some research, I'm afraid. I'm very sorry, I don't know the difference. I imagine an elephant's heart proportionately is smaller, but in total mass, its gross mass must be must be larger than a giraffe. So I'm afraid, Anna-Maria, I'm going to have to look that up for you. I don't know. But remember that the big thing to remember with an elephant versus a giraffe is that the heart doesn't have to overcome the effects of gravity in the same way that it does in a giraffe. So that long neck provides something of a difficulty for the animal in getting blood to the most important part of the body, and that's the brain. Well, one of the most important parts, and keeping it there just long enough for it to feed the brain with oxygen and then extracting it again. And so there's a very complex network of valves and veins and arteries below the giraffe's brain that regulates the blood flow to the brain from this enormous heart. Which is somewhere in there. I'm constantly amazed by the musculature on those young giraffes' legs. Oh, this is very exciting. I'm going to go quickly across to Scott. He's got another tiny baby for you, this time a lot more colourful.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, this is something that I've never done before. We've taken a film of some tiny lilac-breasted rollers. Take a close look at this. You can't see very clearly, so do your best to squint and take a close look. You can see them in there.
Hello, little baby birds. It'd be nice if you moved a little bit so that people can see what you actually are. But I don't think we're going to get that lucky.
So you could have possibly seen that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm trying to create...
Hello, little baby birds.
There you can see them moving ever so slightly.
So that people can see
Hardly any feathers on them. And these are lilac-breasted rollers. Can you believe it? And I'm just going to... And there's just two of them in there. And what I'm going to do now is just... As Teb zooms out, you can see our little anti-glare enclosure we just made, and the nest is right in front of us. So if you look at this little cavity in the tree there, that's where the adults enter. But interestingly enough, oh, I can hear the mothers in the tree. If you just go up a little, here she comes, Tebs, a little bit higher up. And she's got some food that she wants to feed them. She's making her way down. Can you believe it? This is absolutely awesome. So now at least you know who she's going to feed. Some tiny, basically unfeathered chicks. Possibly only a couple of days old. I only discovered this nest 2 days ago. And she might be a little bit apprehensive. She watched me doing the film from nearby. Here she goes. Straight into the hole. I can't tell what she's got there in her beak, but how lucky is our timing? And that's what those tiny little unfeathered, not very pretty birds are going to turn into one day. Still can't work out what exactly she's caught there to feed them. But now what's interesting is that you would expect the nest to be not too far into this cavity, but it's about 70 to 80 centimeters down. That's what made filming it so tricky. They are very far down that hole. So basically, like I said, about at least 50 centimeters, at least half a meter, this adult needs to kind of clamber downwards through a very tight cavity where the chicks are waiting at the base, and then she'll have to kind of somehow clamber back up. I'm not sure how she does it. Here she goes. And she's going to disappear a long way down, unless of course she drops it from there, but I doubt that's going to be the case. She will need to feed from beak to beak, these tiny little fledglings. And you can see how difficult it is for her to get in there. And that's what made it so tricky for us to film. Can you believe it? Well, so happy that you got to see the little chicks that you went to go and feed right now, and we'll be doing our best to carry on taking kind of short videos on cell phones that we can show you, or possibly we may have a little tool. VM's got a kind of endoscope, a camera that's got a little cord that you just push into holes and then it films down into cavities, so that might also be useful to use in this scenario and other scenarios. There's going to be a lot of different birds nesting in cavities in trees, and I'm sure a lot of you enjoyed that insight into what is going on in the hole as opposed to just seeing the adults disappearing down it. What a great day it's been. Well done to James for finding the wild dogs early on this morning and for providing us with so much excitement early on to start the drive off. And then Buffelshoek Waterhole provided us with an ornithological buffet with lots of birds to see and lots of birds feeding to see. The kingfishers catching fish, the storks catching fish. A real wonderful sighting was had over there, and all the other stuff in between, the elephants, the giraffe. Truly a wonderful safari, and I'm sure a lot of you have enjoyed it. Well done to Tebs on camera and to Tara and Jerry in the final control room. We will see you all on the next safari. Over to James.
That is an absolutely astonishing thing for you to have seen. I am again jealous, but also it just proves the point that you can't be looking around here only for the big five when you've got amazing things like that lilac-breasted roller. Lim Mo has come back to us with some information. Thank you, Lim Mo, for this. You say that the heart of an adult giraffe is 11 kilograms, which is about 24 pounds, so much bigger than I thought it was. The largest of any land mammal, so possibly even bigger than elephants. Thank you for that, Lamo. And that it pumps an astonishing 60 litres of blood per minute around the body. So that's really pretty astonishing. Really incredible stuff. Thank you, Lamo, for that. And apparently their blood pressure is also more than double that of a human being. That's not surprising. I suspect it's also higher because they're generally a lot more afraid than we are, given they must look out for things that want to eat them all the time. So here's the mother having a browse, a late breakfast. Like I say, the energy of things is really reduced now. Well, not reduced, it's just changed. And it's just a wonderful kind of calm. And then a quick question. We've obviously talked a lot about the rain and the weather and the dryness and that sort of thing. And Neil, you want to know if it's going to rain today, if there's anything predicted. Neil, there wasn't even any cloud predicted for today. So the fact that there is no rain does not surprise me in the slightest. I don't think there will be rain. It doesn't feel like rain. Maybe the odd spot, but who knows. There was some predicted for the end of this week around Saturday, but I mean that even a short-term prediction out here is almost impossible to get. Anyway, that's it for this morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your time. Sorry for our late start, but wonderful dogs we've had, wonderful elephants, a plethora of birds which have really delighted us. And to finish off, these beautiful giraffe which are sitting here in what is it's a nice breezy morning. Thank you for your questions and contributions again. Thank you, Rondre on camera, Tara of course, and Nikki in the final control. Jerry and Scott on the other vehicle with Viam. Jamie still tracking Karula. We'll see you later this afternoon. Bye bye.